The Intercept Brazil has revealed a new connection between the Bolsonaro group and Daniel Vorcaro's Mafia. Another former Bolsonaro minister, according to the Intercept, received millions of reais from the Daniel Vorcaro Mafia. Exactly, it was Minister Bento from the Citizenship Ministry in the Bolsonaro government. Do you remember the payroll deducted loans tied to Auxílio Brasil? That in 2022, Bolsonaro, trying to win the elections to get re-elected, he started giving out payroll loans to everyone. For those who had Bolsa Familia for retirees, pensioners with more than 30% of their retirement or pension committed. That's right. Yes. This minister took advantage of this situation to open the bank accounts of those who had Auxílio Brasil, Bolsa Familia, and also retirees and pensioners for Daniel Vorcaro's Mafia. Who scammed these people? A large part of these people were victims of the payroll loan mafia. And with that, he received 11 million reais in return. Part of this money he received in cash, and part of this money he received through a company in which he, the minister, was a partner. This was revealed by Intercept Brazil. It's this one right here. He's the former Minister of Citizenship under Bolsonaro, Ronaldo Vieira Bento. Huge news, huge news. Master transferred 11 million to Bolsonaro's former minister. But I want to give a warning here. Someone who had a lot of influence over this ministry and was even a former minister was Onyx Lorenzoni. Do you remember? Onyx Lorenzoni was Bolsonaro's Minister of Citizenship. He was a federal deputy, a supporter of Bolsonaro. He tried to get elected in 2022 for the government of Rio Grande do Sul and lost the elections. Today, he doesn't hold any elected office. He was Bolsonaro's Minister of Citizenship. Do you remember the emergency aid scheme? That's right. During the pandemic, when the government provided emergency aid, the person in charge at the time was Onyx Lorenzoni. Then later, Onyx went through that phase. Onyx Lorenzoni moved to the ministry, was at the Ministry of Citizenship, and then went to the Ministry of Social Security. Yes, in fact, he was the one who authorized Banco Master to have access to the bank accounts of retirees and pensioners, in which Banco Master is also part of the INSS fraud, which made improper deductions from thousands of retirees and pensioners. Before this one took over, Onyx Lorenzoni also served at the Ministry of Citizenship. For me, Onyx Lorenzoni is just a matter of time. He's also involved in this. At the time, in fact, some congressmen like Rogerio Correa said that this Correa was a frontman, that Ronaldo Vieira was a frontman too, in the scheme that was already happening under the Bolsonaro government. So we have this new revelation here. Bolsonaro's new minister, according to what was revealed by the Intercept Brazil, received 11 million in bribes, apparently from Daniel. How many ministers has Bolsonaro had? No. Let's take a look at this. Before that, let's see what Intercept posted, a summary of what they posted here on their Instagram about this situation. Look here. Ronaldo Bento moved to companies that offer payroll loans after leading the Ministry of Citizenship in the Bolsonaro government. When he authorized the same type of loan for Auxílio Brasil beneficiaries and for Bolsa Familia at the time, his involvement with Banco Master was national. His involvement with Banco Master was ignored in parliamentary commissions for rehabilitation. Inquérito. Master transferred 11 million to a former minister of Bolsonaro and companies under his control. The former Minister of Citizenship in the Bolsonaro government, Ronaldo Vieira, and companies linked to him received 11 million from Banco Master in the last 2 years. Of the total, more than 773,000 were paid directly to the former minister as an individual. The rest was directed to companies in which he was an administrator or with which he had a corporate connection. One of them, MetaCard, operated with payroll benefit cards aimed at public servants, retirees, and pensioners. Former federal police agent and affiliated with the Republicanos Party. Bento worked in 2022 on the authorization of payroll loans, granting of credit with direct installment deductions from the payroll for Auxílio Brasil beneficiaries, which at the time replaced Bolsa Familia. After heading the Ministry of Citizenship between March and December 2022, the former minister took on the positions of CEO of Banco Pleno and former minister, director and former administrator of MetaCard, a card management company, companies linked to the master bank conglomerate, investigated in Operation Compliance Zero by the federal police for suspected financial fraud. Most of the funds transferred by Master went to Meta Consultoria, which received RM 2 million in 2025. The former minister is a partner in this company, which was created in June 2023. Meta Consultoria states that it provides business management consulting activities, document preparation, and other specialized administrative support services. In November 2024, it joined with another company called CLT Participações Partners. They created a third company, Beta Serviços Financeiros, which was closed in March this year. During the period when this partnership was active, CLT received RM 2 million from Master. The authorization for payroll deductible loans linked to Auxílio Brasil. It was presented by Jair Bolsonaro during the administration of the then Minister of Citizenship, João Roma, in March 2022. But the regulation and operation of this type of loan was carried out during the administration of Ronaldo Vieira Bento in August of that year. At the time, the then minister defended the measure as a way to help the poorest get loans without having to rely on loan sharks. Bento was responsible for authorizing the banks that could offer this type of loan linked to Auxílio Brasil. At the time, about a third of Brazilian families were receiving this benefit. Ronaldo Bento, look at what Rogério Correa, a federal deputy from PT, said. Ronaldo Bento was an interim minister handpicked to do the dirty work on the eve of the 2022 elections. And he made millions of reais available to Bolsa Familia beneficiaries so they could take out payroll loans, putting these families into debt and with that trying to win votes for Jair Bolsonaro. The families and anyone who had the benefit, if they wanted to take out the loan, could do so, right? So in this case, that's not even the situation. The situation itself is that many people took out loans, had deductions from their benefits, retirement, pension, Auxílio Brasil, and didn't receive the money. And other people didn't apply for a loan, had deductions, and never applied for a loan, never received anything. That's the problem with this mafia here. And continuing, so we can wrap up this part about the Intercept Brazil report. Ronaldo Bento was mentioned more than once in the Joint Parliamentary Inquiry Committee of the National Social Security Institute, the CPI, CPMI of the INSS, and in the Organized Crime CPI. But the request to investigate him never moved forward, and he ended up escaping parliamentary scrutiny unscathed. In a statement sent to the press office, Ronaldo Bento said that the payments mentioned in the report refer to the former minister's compensation for his work as an advisor to the financial institution. We also contacted the press office of former President Jair Bolsonaro, Metacard, CLT Participações, and Meta Consultoria, but we did not receive a response. Daniel Vorcaro's press office stated that they will not comment. In other words, he said that the amount he received, 6 million reais, was for the work he performed and not because of any scheme with Daniel Vorcaro's Mafia. This is being investigated by the federal police, I believe, and yet another Bolsonaro minister is involved in the Banco Master fraud scheme, which is huge. Exactly, the former Minister of Citizenship, AA. Bento. Documents sent by the Federal Revenue Service to the Senate's Organized Crime CPI indicate that Banco Master transferred 11 million to the former Minister of Citizenship, Ronaldo Vieira, and to companies linked to him in the last 2 years. That's a lot of money, isn't it? That's a lot of money. So many people and schemes show up. This is the second minister. Actually, not the second. I'll say the third. I'll say the third, and I'll explain it to you. This one just showed up now, former minister of Bolsonaro, involved and suspected of involvement in Daniel Vorcaro's Mafia, Bento, Bolsonaro's Minister of Citizenship. We have here, look, Ciro Nogueira, former Chief of Staff Minister under Bolsonaro. Ciro Nogueira's situation is extremely serious. Ciro Nogueira should be removed from his position as senator. Ciro, the judicial process, the police investigation part is slow. Now the political part, the political judgment is quick. And the federal Senate had to remove Ciro Nogueira from his position as senator. But the Senate is seeing all of this as normal. The secrecy of part of the investigation into Daniel Vorcaro's Mafia was broken by Minister Andre Mendonça. And in the part that was revealed from the secrecy, it clearly shows that Daniel Vorcaro transferred millions and millions of reais to Ciro Nogueira. In fact, Hugo Mota is mentioned here because in this revelation, it also shows that Hugo Mota had a dinner paid for by Daniel Vorcaro, a private jet loaned by Daniel Vorcaro, and expenses paid at the event in Lisbon. Hugo Mota said that everything is normal, that there was no problem at all, that everything is normal, and that he is very calm. If that's all there is so far, let's say there's nothing to it. But the federal police are investigating everything, you see. Now, the issue with Ciro Nogueira is much more serious. The issue with Ciro Nogueira here, look, photos from his trip. This is his private jet where even Nicolas Ferreira took just 10 trips, that's all. Look here, photos of Ciro Nogueira at meetings with Daniel Vorcaro. And here's the thing, right? In this, with part of the investigation unsealed, it's clear there that Ciro Nogueira really received bribes of 300,000 to 500,000 per month. And from what everything indicates, more than 6 million reais were passed on to him, including in cash. The federal police said that part of this money was handed over in cash to the senator, a Bolsonaro supporter, former chief of staff minister under Bolsonaro in Daniel Vorcaro's Mafia. Okay, he paid just lunch there, an event they had in the Alps in France where he bought clothes, paid for them to do the French Alps, skiing, everything. It was more than 100,000 reais, just one restaurant bill that Daniel Vorcaro paid for Ciro Nogueira there. The scheme is really heavy. And I reiterate, is the federal Senate seeing this as normal? Ciro Nogueira should have been removed from the position of senator. Now, maybe he won't be removed because he could turn in the others who are involved too, right? Maybe those who have something to hide in there aren't exposing the others because they know their own secrets are big. And diametrically opposed to all this action that should be taken to remove Ciro Nogueira from the position of senator, Alcolumbre still chooses him to represent the Senate at an event in New York. And emphasizing that in the plea bargain, which was not accepted neither by the federal police nor by the prosecutor general's office, Daniel Borcaro's second plea bargain was not accepted by the federal police nor by the attorney general's office, and it was not accepted by Andre Mendonça either, because he is withholding information and protecting people. Daniel Borcaro confessed for the first time that he really paid bribes to Ciro Nogueira, former minister of Bolsonaro, and also to Alcolumbre. And that $30 million, 155 million reais were passed on to Alcolumbre. This is very serious, guys. It's very serious. Alcolumbre also came and said that he has no involvement, that he never received money from Daniel Borcaro. Why would Daniel Borcaro make that up? Right? Maybe that explains why Ciro Nogueira hasn't been removed from his position as senator yet. Because if Ciro Nogueira is removed, Alcolumbre also has to be. Soon after, the next one came, then another, and so on. And from what it seems, everyone is covering up for these revelations, which until now were just backstage conversations. Now, most of them aren't. The minister and rapporteur, Andre Mendonça, revealed part of the police investigation. And when did he reveal that? At the trial. It even got really heated, and I'll show you. At the trial here, look, about whether or not to keep Daniel Borcaro's cousin and Daniel Borcaro's father in custody. When it came to the trial about whether or not to keep the two in custody, and it was decided by 3-1 by the second panel of the Supreme Federal Court, Andre Mendonça decided to lift part of the investigation's confidentiality. So it's official now. It's official. So it's very serious. Ciro Nogueira had to be removed from office, and I believe that even Alcolumbre too. But from what everything indicates, there are a lot of people in the Senate who are turning a blind eye and covering up this whole situation because maybe they're also involved in Daniel Borcaro's Mafia. Then it was decided by the second panel of the Supreme Federal Court yesterday. While in the first panel, the trial of Eduardo Bolsonaro was taking place, where he was convicted for the crime of coercion during the course of the process, which I explained in detail in the 8:30 Live. This trial was happening in the second panel of the Supreme Federal Court, in which by a vote of 3-1 with the votes of Andre Mendonça, Luis Fu, and Nunes Marquez, it was decided to maintain the imprisonment of Henrique Borcaro, Daniel Borcaro's father, and Daniel Borcaro's cousin, keeping them in custody. Now the session was tense. Gilmar Mendez voted for the release for the house arrest of Daniel Borcaro and for the release from jail of Daniel Borcaro's cousin. Andre Mendonça was totally against it, Nunes Marquez was against it, and Luis Fuchs was also against the release. And Gilmar Mendez warned to be careful so that this investigation doesn't become a new Lava Jato style operation. And Andre Mendonça said that this situation is very serious and that it involves a dangerous mafia. In the part of the investigation that Andre Mendonça unsealed, just so you know, it says there that Daniel Borcaro has, or at least had, undercover agents in the federal police, maybe even in the federal public prosecutor's office. It says there that Daniel Borcaro was setting up a trap for his fiance's ex-husband to frame him for drug use, an NBA player from the United States. There are situations involving machine guns and weapons. There are even some hilarious situations like, for example, a private jet to take the escorts, the call girls to the parties. The payment priority is for Ciro Nogueira and the payment of bribes. Daniel Vorcaro even got into a fight with Fabiano Zettel at one point. Fabiano Zettel is Daniel Vorcaro's brother-in-law, who is also in jail, who handled most of the payments. He even donated $3 million to Bolsonaro's campaign in 2022. Daniel Vorcaro argued with Fabiano Zettel, saying that he should pay, that the payment was a priority.
Da propina, especial.
He sent it to the Justice Chamber, the declaration, that it couldn't be delayed. Thank you. And all of this was revealed in part by Andre Mendonça. And Andre Mendonça said, I'll show you in a moment that he's not afraid to die. That Daniel Vorcaro's lawyers proposed a selective plea bargain, a partial plea bargain, and that they had the courage to say to his face that it was a selective plea bargain. Then Andre Mendonça said, I'm not interested in a selective plea bargain. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not interested in any plea bargain. The federal police will find the evidence. He said he's not afraid of dying, that he knows there are people infiltrated in the federal police, that this is not a white-collar crime. It's an extremely dangerous mafia. He said he sent Daniel Vorcaro to the federal maximum security prison, previously, because there was a suspicion of an attempt to poison Daniel Vorcaro. He clearly said that they might try to kill Daniel Vorcaro and that there are many more people involved in this whole situation and that he will not back down. And things got serious. And there yesterday in the second panel of the Supreme Federal Court, shall we check out some of the statements here about this situation? It's not turning into a lava jato, guys. That's what's important. That it catches everyone who's involved. Everyone. In fact, with another Bolsonaro minister under suspicion, honestly, the Bolsonaro family might as well have been Daniel Vorcaro's partner. What I always have to say is that Banco Master only started operating as Banco Master because Campos Neto, who was appointed to the central bank by Bolsonaro, authorized it. Banco Master was only able to get involved and participate in the INSS fraud because Onyx Lorenzoni, when he was the Minister of Social Security, authorized Banco Master to have access to the portfolio of retirees and pensioners. And now we see the former Minister of Citizenship, Bento, who is suspected of being involved. We know about Ciro Nogueira, the one I'm talking to you about, former Chief of Staff Minister under Bolsonaro. The closest minister to the president is the Chief of Staff. His office is next to the president's office. It's like being the chief of staff. And who was it? Ciro Nogueira. Also, by all indications, involved. Campos Neto was the president of the central bank, chosen by whom? By Bolsonaro. And we also have, we can't say for sure, but very possibly the involvement of another Bolsonaro minister. Who, Andre? Mario Frias. Mario Frias was Bolsonaro's Minister of Culture. He was the executive producer of the film Dark Horse, and he said he was going to present the film's accounts. Once the audio leaked, here it is, I'll show you. As soon as the audio of the scheme leaked, here it is of Flavio Bolsonaro demanding money from Daniel Alvorcar. Mario Frias, who is the executive director of the film, said he was going to present the accounts. The following week, on the 15th, it was a month, and up until now, he hasn't presented the accounts. He was also a former minister of Bolsonaro. So we can already talk about Ciro Nogueira, former minister of Bolsonaro, Bento, former minister of Bolsonaro, and also Mario Frias, former minister of Bolsonaro, who is also suspected of involvement in Daniel Alvorcar's Mafia. And Flavio Bolsonaro demanding money from Daniel Alvorcar, millions, and the money going to the account of Eduardo Bolsonaro's lawyers' fund in the United States. That, to me, is a partnership. It's a connection between partners. Do you understand, my dear? Look here, okay? Almost a month after the promise, Mario Frias still hasn't released the dark horse accounts. The congressman promised to present the accounts a week after the interview, but the silence persists. And who was he directly connected to? Mario Frias. Karina Gama. The sole owner of Go Up, the production company behind the film, who had never produced a film before. And by all indications, this legal entity was created to make Bolsonaro's film. So my son and my daughter, my dear, there's no way around it, right? For me, this is more than just a connection. For me, this is already a partnership. Shall we take a look at the argument that happened yesterday between Gilmar Mendes and Andre Mendonça? Some excerpts here. Let's watch together. Pay attention.
Without saying for sure, there are no reasons not to endorse it. And this decision, with due respect to opposing views.
And first, we're not judging the case. Here we are judging the criteria for a preventive detention.
Exactly. We're not judging the Lava Jato case.
And we're not judging this, no.
We're judging Enrique.
No, we're judging the arrest.
The arrest and its reasons, that's all.
The grounds for the arrest?
That's it.
That's what it's about.
Of an organization and activity, exactly.
Those members of the group, and thanks, incidentally, to your actions in jailing several of them, Gilmar.
I arrest the group and operators, but not the masterminds.
No, the discussion that was raised and that is being raised here is exactly about Enrique Vocar and Felipe Vocar. And then, regarding Felipe Vocar, I even had the opportunity to detail the debate about the issue involving that big BTG operation in which this was clarified. And the discussion here is about the appropriateness of the measures, taking the most radical ones like provisional imprisonment. Again, I repeat, we are not.
I regret that they are in prison, Gilmar. I regret it. We are not judging.
We are not judging the case.
We are judging the imprisonment.
We are only looking at it.
The reasons that led to the imprisonment.
It is very important that we stay attentive to the facts, to the reasoning, because we might allow, as we have seen in the past, generic justifications that do not apply to the case.
Minister Gilmar, I always publish my decisions. Do you know why? It's how society criticizes my decisions.
Thank you. No, Your Excellency, the law requires it. There is no alternative.
It's the Constitution that requires it, Your Excellency.
Your Excellency doesn't choose whether to publish the decision or not. There's a decision.
There are decisions that are public and there are decisions that I can keep confidential, reserved for the judges. It's different.
No, but technically the decisions must be published.
No.
Not all of them, including for general oversight and social control.
I'm glad Your Excellency supports that.
No, it's essential. But I want to point out, with all due respect, that we will continue to disagree on this. And I think we need to be careful in conducting these investigative procedures. We are all on the same side when it comes to fighting crime and organized crime. But now there must be constitutional methods to do this.
They are happening, Minister Gilmar. You can be sure it's essential. What I will not allow are attempts that I have seen to unfairly discredit the work, whether it's mine as the rapporteur or the investigators. I won't. What I can say is, well...
Then show us what you're here for. Where's the ankle monitor on Flavio Bolsonaro? Where's the ankle monitor on Ciro Nogueira, guys? Guys, there has to be one. Ciro Nogueira is going to the United States. Soon he will influence witnesses, coordinate stories. Flavio Bolsonaro is constantly traveling to the United States. Soon he'll be getting his story straight with Eduardo Bolsonaro. And, well, let me tell you something. I didn't understand Gilmar Mendes. Gilmar Mendes wanted the big criminal to be released. Andre Mendonça is right. Is he wrong? No. Andre Mendonça, Luis Fux, and Nunes Marquez voted to keep the detentions in place. And Gilmar Mendes wanted to go easy on the criminals. Now Andre Mendonça will have the opportunity to show what he's made of. If he's really a brave justice, or if he's going to give in to the Bolsonaristas who apparently are involved up to their necks. And he needs to act, and act fast. And we're going to stay here. the fight continued here. Look. And he said it's the mafia. It's a dangerous mafia. Pay attention.
Good. There are hints of mafia here. There are hints of organized crime. There's bribery, organized crime. With rifles, with machine guns, with weapons with filed off serial numbers, with infiltration into the police system. That's why I want beforehand to thank you for this in-person trial, which allows me to clarify some things that aren't so clear. That even brings up some hidden issues. And it's interesting because I remember a conversation, Justice Juan Maya, with Your Excellency, right after being nominated to the Supreme Court. You noted that being a Supreme Court justice requires courage. And I remember what I answered you on that occasion. I'm not afraid of death, much less of being a justice. I'm not afraid to fight crime, enforcing the law. I'm not afraid to acquit those who are innocent. I don't act under media pressure, and I don't seek out the media either. No. There are traces of the mafia here.
That's right. Mafia with rifles, with I don't know what else. Many things we don't know about. And he said that he determined Daniel Vorcaro's age for the maximum security penitentiary, where Daniel Vorcaro himself later decided to turn state's evidence. And he asked to go to the federal police headquarters. But he said he sent him there fearing that he might be silenced. They are aware that for many people, it's better if Daniel Vorcaro dies, because that means they won't go to jail. So this is very serious. Let's watch this part that the minister also talked about this perspective here, about the risk of death for Daniel Vorcaro.
The federal authorities are very concerned. They get in touch with my office, with me. Since we didn't know, what was known, Minister Cassio, was that there was involvement of heavy organized crime, a group with hitmen, with federal police officers infiltrated into the criminal organization, with a group of hackers all still unknown. It was because of the risk to Daniel's physical safety, city, and as a temporary measure, the federal police asked for him to be sent to a federal prison because they didn't know the reach of this entire organized crime group. Sometimes it's poisoned food. Sometimes it's water. And a person is eliminated or a file is erased. I made the decision solely and exclusively to protect him at that moment. It was a tough decision, sending him to the federal prison. I make the decision, call the lawyers, and say the following to the lawyers. Given the current situation, if you gentlemen are confident about your client's physical safety in another location, I'll transfer him. The city. The lawyers themselves, we don't have it either, Minister. So as soon as we have a better understanding of things, at the first opportunity, I'll transfer him back to a less restrictive regime. The federal police, very much so, that's right.
And I've already said it. I had already told you that. Since Monday, since last Friday, I've been saying it. Daniel Vorcaro has to go to the safest place possible, the federal police, because otherwise they're going to kill him. And the federal police themselves informed Minister Andre Mendonça that they didn't know the extent of infiltration by Daniel Vorcaro's mafia within the federal police itself, and that they feared for Daniel Vorcaro's life. That's why he sent him to the federal maximum security penitentiary in Brasilia. He must go to the safest place. Since this is a mafia, there are a lot of people who want Daniel Vorcaro dead. Dead. And Andre Mendonça said more. Andre Mendonça said that more things are coming. That he authorized the federal police to access part of the hitman's file. Do you remember the hitman who died or was killed at the federal police headquarters in Minas Gerais, where he was arrested? That's right. The federal police just got authorization, according to Andre Mendonça himself yesterday, to break into a cloud of situations and uncover new things. In fact, the hitman, according to the federal police's findings, said he didn't have control over Minas Gerais. He was the one in charge there. That's it. He was a former police officer. He was retired, if I'm not mistaken, and he ended up committing suicide. That happened there at the federal police superintendency right after he was arrested. And he was responsible for the most violent and dirtiest work in Daniel Vorcaro's mafia. And according to the federal police, as soon as he died, the one who took over this position was Enrique Vorcaro, Daniel Vorcaro's father. And now a new situation has come up. Joanna is the hitman's sister. The federal police found evidence that she was blackmailing Enrique Vorcaro for money while he was still free. And Enrique Vorcaro paid her a bribe. And she said she had a bombshell to drop that would bring down the entire Vorcaro family. This woman, for example, if she's not already in jail, you can put her in prison. Because if not, if you don't, they're going to kill her. She'll end up being silenced too. Hey, listen to what I'm saying. It's an extremely dangerous mafia that has infiltrated the federal police, the public prosecutor's office, and the National Congress. With the involvement of senators, Bolsonaro's former ministers, and members of parliament. The